Layla Joseph's STEM path started as a child, with her first mentor, her mother. Layla's mom encouraged her to explore STEM at a very early age, and she's been exploring ever since. Layla graduated from Shaker Heights High School and Stanford University. She's now a research assistant at Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine and an aspiring physician. Layla discusses her journey with Gabriella Espiritu, a senior at the Laurel School and an intern for the NeoSTEM ecosystem.
Did you have any mentors that kind of helped you along throughout your career?
Definitely, tons of mentors. I think first and foremost, I would credit my mom with a lot of the path that I've taken because I don't know how much you know about her, but she is very involved in STEM outreach and kind of a lot of the work she's done basically throughout my entire life has just been getting kids, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds, interested in STEM and kind of seeing themselves in STEM careers. And so that was just like my childhood was just her enrolling me in like math camps and science camps. And I remember going to a pre-surgical camp at the Cleveland Natural History Museum one summer, and that was particularly inspiring for me. But it was kind of just growing up in that environment that really allowed me to see a STEM career as something that I could definitely do and that I wanted to do. And then when I got into, school, I think in high school, all of my science teachers were pretty phenomenal. And so I was always inspired by them. But when I got to college, I think that was when I really found a community, particularly with the pre-medical community. And so I had the opportunity to serve as president of our Black pre-medical organization for 2 years while I was there. And through that, I was just able to meet so many doctors and educators, particularly Black doctors and educators who really just showed how to pave the way. And like, it's really easy to feel confident that in pursuing a particular career, if you see people who look like you're doing that. And so I was really privileged to be able to be surrounded by all these people kind of at the top of their game who were really excited to see younger people also interested in it and were very willing and giving with their time. And so I was able to bring a lot of those mentors as speakers to our organization to kind of just interact with many students. And so that was incredible. And then I've been out of school for over a year now, and I'm working in a lab at Northwestern. And my PI has been an incredible mentor. She kind of knows about my interest as pursuing a career as a physician scientist. And so she has just been really helpful in getting me those experiences beyond kind of the typical research assistant, like operational things. She's really been getting me involved in writing papers and learning about the data analysis team and the IT team and what all the members of a research team do. So I think kind of just throughout my life, I've been privileged to really have some incredible mentors in kind of every institution that I've been involved with. But I would heavily credit my mom as really creating that initial inspiration for me and really serving as a mentor through all these years.
Yeah, I think that's really important, kind of what you said, looking for mentors and particularly people like in fields that you're interested that look like you. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with these interviews and profiles, kind of give people who see it that kind of opportunity. Would you say that you have any kind of advice you have for maybe students who are looking for those kinds of opportunities? Because I know that it can be kind of difficult.
Definitely. So in terms of, would this be high school students, college students, kind of all of the above?
Um, I guess typically like middle school to high school students, though I guess college students it could also maybe apply to them as well.
Okay, yeah. So I think it is incredible to get started as early as possible. There are so many opportunities out there for students to be exposed to these types of careers as young as elementary school, honestly. And so my advice would just be if you find something interesting, even in school, I mean, I think a lot of topics I would learn in school and still be really curious about, but the way that school works, you usually kind of move on in the next week and you're on to a new topic or idea. And so I think if students are inspired by something they're learning in school, I would highly recommend for them to kind of look for resources online, look for other opportunities. There are so many camps and things to do over the summer. Summer is the perfect time to really capitalize on both your freedom to kind of relax and also your freedom to really explore some of the things you can't do during school. So I would definitely encourage students to really look for summer camp opportunities that can foster their development in kind of learning more about these more specific topics that they're interested in. And even during the school year, I mean, I did not do much work during the school year, but I'm sure there are other opportunities, kind of like weekend things that different colleges and universities do. My mom was involved in some engineering opportunities, and there was some program with medical students where on weekends they would bring students to the university and kind of show them different anatomy and do different experiments with them. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities like that out there. And if you aren't privileged to have, you know, a mom who's kind of deeply involved in those things, the responsibility sometimes does fall on you to really seek those opportunities out. But I would really just, you know, look up your city, look up the, you know, surrounding colleges, universities, and see what opportunities are out there, because I think a lot of these places have great ways for young people to really get involved in these sorts of things. And it's just kind of knowing the right place to look.
Okay. Yeah. So now could you talk a little bit more about what you do specifically? I know you mentioned like working at a lab, so maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and then maybe any other kind of relevant, I guess, things you've done throughout your career in
Sure.
STEM. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think to preface it, I am kind of just my trajectory as I see it now is I'm interested in pursuing a career as a physician scientist, which would mean I would split my time between practicing medicine, seeing patients, and conducting research. And so kind of everything I've done, I think leading up to this point has really been to set me up to be successful in that. I am currently applying to medical school this year, so I'm kind of in the cycle right now. And I have had a lot of kind of shadowing and clinical experiences, and also had a lot of research experiences that have really led me to this point. So what I'm currently doing, I graduated in the June of 2020. So over a year ago, I graduated and was looking for research jobs because I knew that in my gap years after graduating that I wanted to get more research experience. I wanted to feel confident that I really did enjoy research as much as I was interested in medicine. And so I've been working as a research assistant and a clinical site support manager at the Northwestern Feinberg School of Medicine in their Department of Medical Social Sciences, which is a great combination of kind of medical research and work in the social sciences like sociology, anthropology, those sorts of things. So it's a great interdisciplinary department where people are doing research mostly with people. It's not really in kind of a lab where you're working with chemicals and running experiments that way. It's a lot of patient-centered research. So we work closely with patients and with physicians. And so the work that I'm doing in my lab is we work with orthopedic surgeons, and my lab has created a tool, a decision-making tool that patients can use to feel more confident about their choice of treatment when they are meeting with an orthopedic surgeon. And so that has been incredible to just learn about the branch of research that really focuses on patients, because I think a lot of times research kind of looks at the medical system and how doctors operate and kind of looks on that side, but not many people are really focusing on what's the patient experience, what are patients really going through, and what would be helpful for them. And so my lab is very much patient focused, trying to figure out how can we help them feel confident about this huge decision, whether or not to have surgery. I mean, that is like life-changing stuff. So that's kind of the work that I'm doing now. And then it is a national study. So we work with multiple orthopedic sites across the country. And so part of my role is really managing everything that's going on in the different sites, making sure that our patient recruitment is, staying steady, making sure that the different surgeons and patients are being cared for at all of our sites. And then kind of just doing general operational things, which I think most research assistants will be familiar with, which is kind of just making sure the study is running by doing all kinds of things, from managing financial tasks to helping schedule meetings and, all kinds of things like that. So my responsibilities are very broad, which has been great because it's really giving me an opportunity to explore every part of the research process, which I think is important for going into it. So I would say this is my most intensive research experience because I am working full time. I'll probably work for them for almost 2 years by the time I leave. And I had a couple of research experiences before then, which were really instrumental in kind of me choosing my path. But I think this has been the most intensive and really the most affirmative, and really helping me realize like this is definitely what I want to do in the future.
Okay, yeah, I didn't really realize that. I guess there was something that was so patient focused, kind of like what you said, as opposed to just purely medical. I think that's really interesting. So were there really any experiences more early on in your life which you think kind of shaped that path for you?
Definitely. I think it would boil down to two experiences. So one was when I was in high school. So one of my good friends at school, her father was a kidney transplant surgeon. And you actually might know Dr. Modlin because he's like kind of a big name in Cleveland medicine. But he's a kidney transplant surgeon who used to work at Cleveland Clinic. I think he's since uh, moved on to, I think he's going to be the Metro Health Director of Diversity and Inclusion in Medicine, which is pretty awesome. But as I knew him, he was a surgeon and a urologist. And I had the opportunity to shadow him kind of on and off. He knew that I was interested in medicine. And so he would just call me up and say, I've got a surgery plan. Do you want to come, watch? And I'd be like, of course, this is the coolest thing ever. And so as a high schooler, I would be allowed to kind of stand in the corner in the operating room while the surgery was happening. And all the residents and the people who were helping out with the surgery would kind of talk to me and like tell me about the procedure. And at that time, I really did not understand. I had like no anatomy background. I was kind of just listening. But being in that room and being around those people really allowed me to feel like this is a place I can be. Like this is totally something I can do. And I think surgery is one of the more mystical medical specialties in that like it takes so much school, it takes so much training to get there that it can be really hard to visualize yourself in that role. And so for me to have that early exposure, I was like, this is great. This is totally something that I can do. And so that was really important for me early on because that was before I needed to choose a college major, before I even really knew that I wanted to be pre-med. And that really helped me make all of those decisions. And then I would also say Dr. Modlin ran a minority men's health clinic through the Cleveland Clinic. And so I also had opportunities to shadow him while he was seeing those patients. And so just kind of hearing patient stories and understanding the ways that their backgrounds influence their health and influence their health outcomes was really important for me to understand, especially because I'm currently really interested in health disparities, in learning about the social determinants of health, the ways that your environment can influence that. And so it was really important for me to kind of see that as it played out through patient interactions, because that is something that I really want to focus my research interests on going forward. So I would say that was super formative. And then in terms of my academic and kind of research interests, the summer after my junior year of college, I had the opportunity to study abroad in Wellington, New Zealand. And so while I was there, I was doing research at a local medical school where they were looking at a cultural competency training program for medical students. So pretty much how do we teach non-Indigenous medical students how to interact with Indigenous patients respectfully, with care, in a way that makes them feel like, this is a place I'm going to be cared for and not disrespected. And so that was an insane experience because, one, just coming from my background as a Black woman in the United States, a lot of my exposure to health disparities was kind of in this Black-white context. And so for me to go to a entirely different side of the world and be with this community that had their own set of health disparities, had their own, barriers to getting better health outcomes, and just learn about that and also be contributing to the process of getting better healthcare was really humbling, and also just like reinvigorated my interest in following this path. And so that is when I really got interested in the field of medical anthropology, because it is really focused on how does culture influence health, particularly in marginalized communities. And so that was kind of like, this is where I need to be. Like, this is really where I feel my calling is. And so after that experience, there were so many ways that I wanted to apply what I had learned there to my own community in the United States. And so I would say those two experiences, one in kind of the medical context and one in the research context, really helped shape my interests and really what I want to do today.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because my aunt, she kind of works like with indigenous communities on environmental solutions. So kind of thinking that that kind of, I guess, lens is applicable to even the medical field. I think that's really interesting, and it's obviously important to kind of talk about. So yeah, I think that's interesting. So going off of the kind of I guess earlier in life aspect of the previous question, would you have any advice that you would give yourself maybe 10 years earlier?
Oh man.
Anything
I would
you
probably say
change? I don't know.
travel more.
Okay.
Because I I have traveled a lot and I love traveling, but I will say once you get on this path of going to medical school, doing your residency, you know, kind of becoming a doctor, I think the opportunities for traveling and getting global experiences can be really limited just because you have such a tight schedule and there's so little room for exploration. Now, that's not to say you can't travel at all, because there are definitely people who do global research, and so that takes them other places, people who do Doctors Without Borders, you know, things like that. But I would say as a whole, I really view the next decade or so of my life as really being a time when I'll be very much tied to the United States and kind of living domestically. So I would probably say travel even more. I will say I did take advantage of as many opportunities as I could. I did study abroad twice in college. During my junior fall, I studied abroad in Santiago, Chile. And then, like I said, after my junior spring, I studied abroad in New Zealand. But I would say probably just get even more experiences, because I think there's really nothing to lose by getting more global experiences. I just think there's so much to learn. And especially coming from a country like the United States, where there's so much nationalism and so much like we are the best, and you know, everyone else, we just see everyone else through such a narrow lens. I think there's so much to really going and having those experiences on your own. And I think I would tell everyone I could, you know, to really get out, even if it's like Canada or, you know, Mexico, places we share borders with, like really just go and experience other cultures and really humble yourself. Because I think Americans tend to have a very like, what do you call it? I guess just narrow-minded view of the world. And so I think it's hard to just read about places in books. It's really great. And it is obviously a great privilege to have the opportunity to travel. But I would say probably that would be the thing that I would tell people to really indulge in, especially when you go to college. Even if I'm talking to middle school and high school students, I would say colleges typically have awesome study abroad programs. So I would say go for those for sure. I have not regretted any of my abroad experiences.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I personally definitely wish I could have the opportunity to travel more. So yeah, I mean, anyone who has the opportunity, definitely. So kind of the big question that they have us ask everyone is what STEM personally means to you?
To me, I think STEM represents an opportunity for creativity. I think my interaction with STEM has really been more focused on kind of the science side. But when I think about, you know, technology, engineering, and math, I think those are all areas in which there's constant learning, constant discovery. And so I think for me, as someone who comes from a marginalized background, knowing that there's just so much room for discovery and there's so much opportunity for me to kind of find my niche and find where I can contribute is just really inspiring and like motivating. Just knowing that nothing is really set in stone. Like there's just so much to find out. There's so much to realize. And I think for a long time, people in STEM have been very homogeneous. And so it's even more exciting to me to understand just how much different cultural, racial, ethnic backgrounds has to influence STEM, and the idea that like that really enriches your experience in your interaction with science, with technology, with engineering and math. I don't know about math. but I'm sure there's some way, it works. But particularly in science for me, like there's just so many areas that I can contribute and so many ways that I can bring my unique perspective to the fields. And I think that is just so exciting. There's just so much room for creativity. And I think that's what makes STEM really interesting to me.
Okay, yeah, I think that's really a great message. I mean, I appreciate that as a person of color who's trying to go into STEM, and I'm sure a lot of students who might read this will feel the same. I think that's basically everything. Was there anything else in particular that you wanted to add?
Um, I don't think, I mean, I think I would just say, you know, keep trying. It's so necessary for people like you to enter the workforce and to pursue these careers. And I know it's hard, and these institutions were not built for us. And in many ways, they were built to keep us out. And so that makes it all the more powerful that we, cast that aside and say, no, I deserve to be here. And this is where I belong. So I would just say, find your community. It is out there. It might be hard to find, but if you stick to it, you will find the people that will really help lift you up and help support you in this path. And though it is hard, there's so many reasons to persevere and so many reasons that you should do it. So that would be my final word, is just kind of a call to action to say, we really do need you in this area, and the fields are made so much richer and so much stronger by your presence. So that would be my final word.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much. No, I really appreciate you guys reaching out.
This interview is part of a series of profiles for NeoSTEM's I Am STEM initiative, a public awareness campaign to elevate the visibility and accessibility of the many STEM career pathways available to underserved students throughout Northeast Ohio. Please visit www.neostem.org to hear more inspiring stories.